the existing ordinance. So we do have a quorum.
Yeah, I guess.
I guess if, well.
Technically, I'm still the secretary right now.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't know what that entails exactly, other than taking minutes. But I think that we should definitely get who wants to be chair. I think it should be one of you two, because I will be ineligible for the water committee.
Or I will be. One of us will be ineligible.
I would assume that you would stay, because you're already on the board. You're already you're already a trustee. You're already here. So that would be my assumption, but I acknowledge that's a possibility. How you doing? Hi.
Yeah, that I may not be, that I might be the one stepping down and you would be the one to be appointed.
It could be either of us. Or if you want to work it out, I guess we can just talk about it. There's no obligation on my part. I do kind of feel like my presence in these meetings probably hasn't been as helpful as I'd like. I think probably the tone and productivity suffers a little bit with my
Hang on.
we're starting
Hang on.
Right now.
Yes. And
we're figuring out how it's going to operate, our procedure, because we lost our chair. Our chair resigned, but we didn't assign a new chair, and we're missing one member. So we have a quorum, but we're discussing as to whether or not. Sorry, I forgot the microphone's way back here. We're discussing the who might be chair, because I'll be one of us will be ineligible to be on the board as of April, so it doesn't make sense for possibly. Is that better? Probably. We have a lot to talk about. So I nominate Paige. I think Paige should be chair.
Second.
Right? Good. Yeah. Okay. Paige, can you run this meeting?
yes, I can run this meeting.
I know that we talked about some things that we had to hit, but we never had the chair makes the agenda, so we have no agenda.
If you don't, first of all, let me ask, because I think in this case, Corinne, I think you will have to vote. Will you have to vote? Because you're still a voting member of the committee based on the existing ordinance. Do you need to vote?
The staff member representative never did vote.
Never did vote?
If you want
Okay.
the vote, you got it.
Okay. Well, okay, vote me chair.
Okay. I vote you chair. Mike, what do you think?
Who wants Paige to be chair? Say aye.
Aye. There you go.
And opposed?
Okay.
Okay, I'll be the chair.
All right. So let's get an agenda. We have a couple of very important documents to cover, I think. A lot of this stuff has been in the news. Had several newspaper articles.
Yep.
So what comes first on the agenda?
I would suggest that we start with the February 4th JDS progress report that we received a couple days after the 4th, simply because it talks about some information they still require, and they had some good recommendations for things that need to be done in a list of order. So I think that one would be of interest. And secondly, Thomas and I both have visited the 2 million gallon plant in the last 2 days. And as a part of that, I received, and Thomas may have as well, some suggestions from Josh, the acting ORC up there, about things that probably need to be done sooner than later and what those priorities might be. So if you both are comfortable with that, I'd kind of like to relay some of what I learned and see what Thomas learned through that tour. I'm gonna
I have, I guess, somewhat of a narrative or a couple questions for everybody as to what we should be pursuing for data, and that's actually rolls right into this. It could be part of this discussion on your first agenda item, the JDS February 4th, because that's discussed quite a bit in there. I do have some numbers generated from physical written logbooks. We have production numbers from 2008 through 2012 that I was able to get from a core request, and I scanned all of that, so it's digital technically. I'm happy to share it with anybody. It's a public record, and the trouble is that it's written. It's a digital scan of a written page. So in order for it to be useful data, as far as JDS is concerned, it needs to be typed in. Now, I think I'll be able to expound more on that later. Do you think that that's a good topic to add to the agenda, and should it be part of JDS?
I would, because I have a couple questions that I would like to ask about it. Mike? Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have those 3 items. I have a couple of one thing to note, I guess not really for discussion because there's no information behind it, but I reached out to a tank supply company that creates glass-lined steel tanks, and these are a potable water storage tank that is similar in scale to what we have now, but the way it's constructed, it has a series of rings, and the volume of the tank can change. So once it's built, it's possible to, if you know beforehand you're going to do it, to change that height. I wish I had a quote for you guys to come back to, but I talked to the guy this Monday, and he hasn't gotten back to me with any numbers. But I think that it might be a wise choice to, rather than put $1.5 to $2 million into a tank to rehab it, to upgrade it, get something that's going to last us for 50 years instead of 5. But that doesn't necessarily need to be on the agenda. That could just be part of announcements, I suppose. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I tend to move my head when I speak. I have to remember to face forward. Thank you. But that's the only other thing I wanted to bring up while we were here. I think the rest of it kind of speaks for itself. Okay.
So for folks who just walked in, I'm now chair, and by unanimous, and at Tuesday's meeting there will be an revised advisory water committee ordinance, which is going to include 2 more members. So we just don't have those members yet, but we will before the next meeting, hopefully. So that change will be good. And right now we're just talking about we didn't come here with an agenda because nobody was in charge. So we're now trying to decide things that we should discuss today, and we have at least 4 items that
Yes.
we've already talked about.
And the ordinance, I think, is probably a good.
Okay.
That's yep. Probably a good set there. How about?
Do I need to do a roll call?
I don't know if that's. I don't
I'll
think that's
just-
necessary.
I'll take the notes for the moment.
I-
And do you want to take
no,
meeting
no,
minutes?
yeah, I'll continue to take minutes. Sure.
I'm Paige Smith.
My name's Thomas Markle.
I'm Mike Drake.
Yeah, I'll take minutes. I apologize, I kind
It's-
of lapsed there. But if I'm not here, we'll have to have a different secretary as well. Although I don't know if that's by law necessary. Maybe.
I think based on the ordinance, it's up to us how we want to organize any other officers.
Yeah, I think they have to be recorded. Yeah, if that's the case,
You got somebody out there that's been raising.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I'll take notes, but.
Okay,
I don't know if
for
we
now.
need that, yeah.
if you don't mind. Corinne? Christina? Sorry, I get my C's mixed up.
Mike, is there a way to adjust your mic? I can't hear you. No. It's toast. I think your battery might be dead. Every time. Yeah.
Hi, Christina Patterson. I was just wondering, I missed the, rundown of what you were doing, like the 4 bullet points, but I also wondered if you were also taking that SSG report and merging it with the SGM report and merging it with the SSG report and seeing where the overlap was and if it was completely 2 different sets of things that they were talking about dealing with.
I'd like to just answer that quickly. On the fly, I would have a hard time coming up with where the 2 overlap without having really thought about the SGM report. And just for people in the audience that aren't familiar with the SGM report, they are an engineering firm that was hired to do what's called an asset inventory for the town of Paonia. They looked at sewer lines, water lines, roads, curb and gutter, sidewalk, the water plants, buildings owned by the town, to look and see the age, which ones need to get fixed first, what the priorities are. And the reason that I'm not sure I could do it on the fly, Thomas may have a better ability to do that, is that we need to be looking at when there's a water line that needs to be fixed. We need to see, well, let me back up. Things like if we have a roadway that needs to be fixed, we should be looking to see if the water line under it was identified as one of the water lines that really needs to be fixed ASAP. And same, any repairs we're doing with the leaks that are happening. I think what you have asked for, Christina, is a really good exercise. I just am not prepared to compare it at the moment.
And it's like I haven't attempted that. We may, I think that's wise to do, but we're not quite there yet. And I just wanted to, I'll list the agenda items that we have. The JDS February 4th memo is first regarding their interim report. The priorities that Paige has learned from visiting the Lamborn plant and the list of repairs that SSG has provided us. The current state of production data, where it is and what we have. And then a discussion of the ordinance to revise the structure of the Advisory Water Committee itself. Does that sound right? Okay. Madam Chair?
I'm just wondering if maybe we should just, and we have a question from the audience, and then we'll set up a more, we're making up the agenda as we go, so sorry about that.
It's okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I just a point of curiosity, has anyone been tracking the amount of water that's been lost with the leaks? Because, I mean, my understanding, if I've got it right, is that the big tank, the 2 million tank, has some leaks, and then we have leaks on certain streets and that with the pipes underneath. So just curious as whether anyone's tracking how much water's been lost, because here, that's money.
Yes. May I answer? Okay. Yes. The way that we track that is to compare the water that is sold at the meter versus the water that is produced at the plant. Right now, currently, we track water that comes into the plant, water that is produced, that is drinking water. There's also wastewater associated with the production. The sterilization and filtering of the water itself loses a little bit, mostly in backwash series to clear the filters. Although our technology at the plant is very good, we lose very little water there. And you're right, where the true leaks occur is between that plant and your kitchen sink. So currently, my understanding is 34%. Corinne, is that correct? That's what I recall from our last meeting. Yes, correct. So we purify and filtrate 100 gallons of water. 34 of those are going to be lost before they get to your sink. And in order to do a good job of tracking where those leaks are and how much it is leaking, we need to have accurate data. We have to have good measurements of what's coming in and what's going out at each point. So that's been my mission for a year now, is trying to get a hold of this data. Well,
Suzanne?
I'm sorry, I don't want to make your meeting take longer, but so my understanding is that you work in an advisory capacity to the town board, so you can contemplate things, look at things, and make recommendations to the board. I haven't reviewed the ordinance before I came to this meeting. So I was just wondering, would it be possible for you guys to, I don't know, either at this meeting or at a future meeting, I really am curious about the Colorado Rural Water Association that we belong to, and any other water associations that we belong to that could potentially advise us. I don't know how familiar you are with this association, but I think it would be really nice if somehow you would be able to meet with this association to hear what they have to offer to us. I really would like the board to know what these associations we have can do for us, and it would be nice to hear from them, to have that dialogue. So I don't know if that's something you would be considered, you would consider looking into, or perhaps recommend to the board that they do this, because my understanding is they might be able to help advise with the big projects we have ahead. Okay. Thank you.
you know, you have a good answer?
Oh, I think I always got an answer, but they're not always good.
I said a good answer.
Oh, okay. What you're asking us to do is something that I believe is in our statutes, for lack of a better word, to look at opportunities and possibilities. And when we, as a group, decide that we should tell the trustees about it, and that way we can get all the information together and everything else. And so we can go, they should be able to make a pretty quick decision as to whether they want to proceed or not proceed. And I think that is literally our primary duty here, is to look at things that we can help the water system work better and get that information, because we can talk a lot, but we have no authority other than to talk. Yeah, talk and make recommendations. And when I say talk, I'm giving them a list of things they need to think
So-
about and do.
That didn't really answer my question, but
I think that might have been the first half of your, speaking to the first half of your question. She was asking specifically about reaching out to other organizations. And I know that, Mike, you subscribe to several newsletters for local and regional water associations.
I've got some contact there, but not a lot.
Yeah, that might actually, Phil Seriani might be the person to reach out to for that. He tends to be fairly gregarious and going out to meet new folks, and he's always has some pretty strong contacts. So he might be better informed about other. We have.
yeah.
Interject, just because I know Corinne can answer this,
Okay.
because they have reached out to them. Thanks,
Yes.
Corinne.
Yes, Greg Coulter with CRWA is scheduled. He said he was going to try to be here this week. He hasn't been here yet, so it may be next week. He was, as he did his tour, he was going to stop here. specifically to look at some items actually at the wastewater treatment plant, but I can give you his contact information if there's someone on the AWC that wants to speak to him. And our membership to CRWA is at no cost, but we are members. The town is, yes.
And that's what I wanted you to explain, that he was coming here to look at specifically to the wastewater treatment plant, but I think they also have quite a bit of oversight on ORC for drinking water as well. Is that correct?
They do. We've reached out to them as well regarding the long-term ORC position and also interacted with them and CDPHE just earlier this week, specific to the water plants as well.
So I wonder, are you thinking, would Mr. Coulter or another representative actually attend one of the trustee meetings? Is that something that we need to try to schedule to have their insight for everyone? Or is this something that you can give us a rundown on what his recommendations were?
When
After the
he
fact.
comes, I can find out from him and find out I don't know where he's located, but of course with the update, they'll be able to attend from anywhere. So I'll definitely find out that if that be something worth coming and bringing to the board during a regular meeting or a special meeting, maybe a work session to get to know them and what they offer.
So Suzanne, does that get at what you were asking? It's not definitive, but it's kind of a in review sort of situation to see, what kind of things they can help us with, because I think that's a great idea.
What date would he be showing up?
He didn't say. He had said he was going to try to stop this week. He's basically doing a ride around Western Slope, and so it's Thursday, and he hasn't been here, so he may be here tomorrow. He
Okay.
just said he was going to try to come this week. If not, it would be next week.
Okay.
I did send a follow-up email to see if I could get some information on a tighter schedule.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Maybe let's just start out again with revision to the Advisory Water Committee ordinance. Trustee Meck and I worked on revisions to that based on.
Excuse me.
Sir-
I'd like to ask to interrupt you. As I wrote them down, we thought about the ordinance last as our, well, yeah, I mean, just as a matter of importance so that we deal with important, more urgent matters and more primarily. If I may, could we stick to the first item was the JDS February 4th memo? Okay, thank you.
So just as a recap for folks who haven't seen this report, JDS is the engineering firm that has done a very intensive review of the town's water system, and with many, many recommendations and lots of good background information on our existing system. And they were had a scope of services amend a contract dealing with the tap moratorium analysis, and one of those was to review monthly inflow, spillage, and production from each treatment facility. So as we have found out, the lower 1 million gallon treatment plant is not online and has not been online for some time. However, part of what they needed was raw water and production into that plant. So it's a moot point. There really hasn't been any good production data from that. So they've written in to say at this point, let's see, you might help me here a second. They wrote, until January 28, 2022, it was understood that both the upper and lower treatment and storage facilities were in operation since September 2021, and that aside from one of the two water flow meters measuring well water, spring water at the lower plant, the data previously requested was being collected. So they have some data, and Thomas, you can probably elaborate on this, as I am not as familiar with all the data that they've been provided.
I can try. Corinne would be the authority as she provided it to them. But I'd like to just make sure that everybody in the public knows This is a document to whom it may concern. It's my understanding that this has been given to the public and is going to be included in the next meeting packet for town trustees. Is that correct?
It was included in the last packet, and I believe, wasn't it?
No.
Okay, no, it was emailed to the board.
This
Yes,
is on
it is
February
to be
4th.
included in
Okay.
the next packet, and I provided everyone in the audience with a copy.
Okay, excellent. So it's in hand.
for
Okay.
Public.
So, thank you. Yes. Yeah. So you can see at this time, JDS Hydro does not have confidence in the supply and production data that has been provided. So they can't help us with what we've provided them. So we need to figure out how we can get them what they need. Now, I have, as I mentioned, several years, 2008 through 2012, worth of production data. And I have attempted to get consumption data, and I have been provided, I think, 2 years of that. Now, I don't know how we can sort this out without good communication. The way that I found out about what JDS had asked for and when was through searching through emails that had been made public by board of trustee motion. And I feel like additional transparency and good communication could have saved us $50,000 this year, because we knew about these problems last year and we discussed them and we made recommendations to avoid them, and our recommendations weren't followed. So I think that what is really necessary is to work toward encouraging good communication as to, and by that I mean what we come up with here and say to each other and transfer by email needs to be communicated to the Board of Trustees so that they are assured of our recommendations. In the end, it's up to them. It's on the board to take action.
Sorry.
And Corinne as well. It's up to, Corinne, you have a lot of power to determine how the water system is run. The board can't do it all, and it falls on you to staff it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's a huge piece of it. And to communicate the state of the water system to the board. And I feel like that's a place that we can begin to work on, is communication. Does that sound reasonable?
I would agree with that. If I may, I'm happy I do want to share with you that our first hire specific to water and wastewater started today. His name's Jeremiah Garcia. He comes with pretty substantial experience, more on the irrigation side, but in conversations with SSG and others when it comes to pipes and fittings and function, it's a pretty similar process. Very attention to detail, very much a go-getter, had great references, and was also spoke with our contractor, SSG, and they also thought he was a good fit. He started today with Joshua.
Okay. I'd like to stay focused on communication for now.
Yes. And
That's great that we have an additional staff member. I appreciate it.
yes. And that's
And thank you. The conversation is regarding communication and recommendations from the board from the committee here getting to the board. And I think that that's what we have to work on first, if we can, in order to address the issues that are raised in this report.
the next
that's-
part of the
that's what I
information I
read.
was going to give was based on the conversation that I had with James prior to his completion of this. as far as an alternative for the data collection until the Lamborn plant comes back, or sorry, the clock plant comes back online. And that would be through data collection of the spring water that comes into the plant, and then the use distribution off of the 2 million. Because through our conversation, basically a way to continue to collect data and move forward in the situation we're in right now is we know how much water is coming in. We would assume that usage is usage, whether it's off the 2 or off a split between the 1 and the 2. This is according to JDS Hydro, that water usage that's supplying everyone, the difference is going to be a reduction in usage off the 2 million when you increase the usage for the in-town off of the 1. So you can extrapolate some data from how much water is coming into the 1 and how much water is being used out of the 2. So that is something that they were considering as an alternative if the board chooses to go that direction, or they can choose to wait, of course, until the 1 million comes back online. But that was a conversation we had when we were discussing the data that was provided to me that I shared with JDS and stated I didn't have confidence in the data any longer.
I just have a question in response to that, and I just wanted the public to understand that, as I understand it, until JDS has this information, they really cannot give us a report reflecting whether or not the moratorium can be lifted, correct?
They said it was possible as long as they have data for what water's coming into the 1 million.
Okay. And another question, do you know if those springs coming into the 1 million, are they currently being metered?
The last information that I had was that 1 meter is working and the other one was not. There hasn't been a lot of follow-up as reported from SSG at the 1 million while they've been working on the primary repairs at the 2.
That'll need to get established and perhaps a meter put in or a meter fixed.
Yes.
And again, for my edification, which 2 springs are the big ones that go into the 1 million? It's not, I know,
I have it as,
Oh,
and
German Creek's
goes
2.
to the 2.
One, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the 1, I can't remember,
Mhm.
are there 2 main springs?
Yeah.
And multiple springs feed into those main pipes, so it's really two incoming pipes that
Mhm.
need to be metered.
Yes.
So it's doable. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Just, and as a follow-up to what Thomas was saying, you know, I'm not sure how much we can do at the moment, given that the JDS Hydro, this 4-page report will be on the Tuesday meeting, other than to maybe go through what they recommended in real time, because, and maybe give our agreement that these are good things to be done. But I would also like to add that having gone to the 2 million gallon plant, I think there's some other things that are really, really important to do that JDS does not know about. So when we're ready for that, I'll go there.
Yeah, I think my thoughts on the document are pretty clear. We can, I'll read those if you like me to. But Mike, did you have anything to add regarding this memo? Okay. So I'm going to read the recommendations by JDS Hydro in the interim until we can provide them the data they require to complete the report. Step number 1 is to conserve water. Until the lower treatment plant facilities are brought online, we are down to a single skid on our upper treatment plant. The Lamborn treatment plant has 3 what are called skids, and those are arrays of membrane filters, and we alternate through those 3 arrays of filters so that any one can be repaired or can be offline, and the other 2 are ready to go. It's a redundancy issue, and we are down to 1 out of 3 in operation. I would like to figure out what we can do in the future to work on that, but that's a different discussion. Sorry, I'm on the list. PRV vault maintenance is number 2. We need to maintain the pressure reducing valve vaults. We have several that are offline, and the result is that the pressure in our homes and businesses is very high and prone to damaged pipes and fixtures. We need to, number 3, ensure reliable operation of the upper treatment facility. Number 4, we need to bring the lower treatment plant finished water storage facilities online. Number 5, we need to develop construction standards and O&M standard operating procedures. And number 6, we need to hire a leak detection contractor. Now, I think that if we have our ducks in a row, eventually we may not need outside assistance for leak detection. That can be a part of our regular execution. I have a couple of things I'd like to address on here, if I may. Speak to a couple of these. Mike?
I'm wondering if on the leak detection, you're getting leak detection by over a length of pipe. Okay, that's definitely a leak detection, and you know it's in that area, but then you have to find exactly where it's leaking, and that's, your data is not going to tell you where it's leaking. So that's an extra thing that has to be done.
Yeah, eventually it has to be dug up and repaired. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you got to find out where
Yeah.
to dig. And unless it's a really huge leak, that's hard to find. That's all.
Okay.
I would just add to that that it seems to me we need a pretty wholesale radio frequency leak detection of the entire system, first and foremost, in my opinion, and then develop a way to find the leaks, the small leaks that we've been having lately. But it seems like we need a major, we're losing a lot of water from leaks that we're not even aware of. And that is another, that would have to be contracted, and then I think they could help us with ongoing leak detection.
Thank you. I did want to add some information for the first 2 topics that were mentioned. First, specific to SKID 2, the estimate for the approval for SKID 2 is on the agenda for Tuesday night as well. Typically, this would be something that, because FilterTech is a sole source provider, that would have just been approved, but because of the current state of things, I did feel it was best to bring it to the board so everyone was aware. So that is on the agenda for Tuesday evening. And again, I don't, not everyone was at the board meeting and is aware of that. John Tedder with Pipestone was through to the week before last and did a full inspection on all of the PRV vaults, and I anticipate his report and cost estimate for repair next week.
And that would be a repair of the entire system.
Every
Everything-
PRV vault and
Right.
valve inside them.
Great. And do you know if the one that hasn't been working, number 1?
That is
is-
on there.
And it'll be hopefully put online?
Yes.
And then the last thing to bring up is that part of the JDS contract is for them to do a modeling survey to decide where to put another vault. I guess it'd be the 10th one.
Right.
Where PRVs would be closer to town at the base of the mesa. So that is hopefully forthcoming, but getting these fixed will help the leaks we have in town
That's correct.
immensely.
And we have that other vault already ordered and on-site, ready for installation as soon as JDS gives information on where to locate it.
Okay. So, I wanted to speak to SOPs. Item number 5 on the recommendation of interim steps to take, barring data. And this circles right on back to my previous topic of communication, because last June, this was specifically discussed at one of these meetings, where it came up as an item in the JDS report, interim report. They said they didn't have SOPs. We asked Travis, I asked Travis if we have SOPs. He said both plants, SOPs exist for both plants. and for those unfamiliar with the term, SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, is just a list of instructions that is in case of we have a break, what valve do we shut off, who do we call, kind of a how-to for plant operation. So I guess I bear some responsibility at that point because I was told they exist, and I just said okay. So perhaps it might have been more productive to ask for them to be produced.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I completely agree that they had a complete set of SOPs.
They have
They-
none.
they-
There are none.
You know, they are, yeah, but
There are zero.
I don't think they claimed that they had some. I think what we had was we had one person that knew how to run the system, and there was no documentation that went with it. And therefore, when that person wasn't available, we were all not drinking water. And that's what's got to be fixed. It is communications, but it's getting standard operating procedures put together so that they could work. And then we also have to have a chain of command of if X isn't here, Y is the one you talk to. If Y is not there, Z is who you talk to. And it's, you might have a beautiful SOP and nobody
Right.
Well, that's,
knows where it's at.
Yeah, staffing is definitely the other half of that
Yeah.
coin. But my question is, it was a topic of discussion June 16th of last year, 2021. And this, having these procedures in place could have saved us a lot of money, a whole lot of money this year. We just spent, authorized $55,000 for 2 months of a temporary ORC. That is the operator responsible charge who runs our plant. Is temporary and getting, not him directly, but the company's charging us $25,000 a month to do the job that we were paying Travis $100,000 a year, $10,000 a month, right? So we're paying, yeah. So how do we fix it? How do we get it? How do we get better communication?
hang on one second. Oh, I know, it's okay. Everybody, let me ask Corinne to input, and then Shireen, come on in, and then,
So after the June conversation and the comment was made, yes, I have SOPs. The information that was brought into town hall and provided to me were the standard operating procedures that were provided at the time that the plant was implemented. So these would be Filter Tech and the Paul plant full operating procedures for how they set up their system. At that time, I was not aware that there's also another set that really is that checklist that anyone really could follow that doesn't have to have all of that in their brain. This is a lot of what's been found as well on that checklist matrix from SSG, things like the phone list. Phone list doesn't help when the phone list is in your phone and you're the only one that has your phone. So things like that. Travis was tasked with creating those SOPs and was going to work with CDPHE on that. That was information that was provided to me and I gave to the board, I believe in December. It might have been November. But of course, that is not the case right now, since he's not here working with CDPHE. But CDPHE has still said that they will assist when an operator is in place to help them with those documents.
it seems to me that Josh has created quite a few of these. And I don't know, hopefully when we get their report, we'll have the exact list of every one of the SOPs that has been created by them as part of their contract. And then we'll know which ones still need to be continued. And we'll know which ones that JDS actually recommended, and the very back page of their report, which ones of those have and have not been done. And I just wanted to add one thing, and then Shereen, I'll have you come up. One of the things that SSG said in here, and I think it has to do more with the construction standards associated with in-street repairs, too. The SOPs, of course, are important, but I think they are suggesting that we have more SOPs for when Roop or Kendall Construction go in. And one of the things that I wondered about that is there are a lot of code provisions currently in our code on construction. So perhaps those need to be looked at to see if they're any good, thrown out, and start fresh. But to me, I don't know that we have anybody on staff that could actually put together construction SOPs at this point. I don't know. And Thomas, and I just wondered if you picked up that distinction in here too, and if you have any insight into that.
Yeah, how about Shreen? I'll defer.
Last June or July, I can't remember, I made a request, a Cora request for an SOP, and I wrote it out, Standard Operating Procedure. And you and Travis have no idea what a Standard Operating Procedure is. None. What you gave me was manuals for the assembly of these machines and equipment.
Yes, that's
Not, that
that's what I
isn't an
stated.
SOP,
Yes,
okay?
I understand
Yeah,
that.
she said, but, again, it's going to the communication. It's like you think you're supplying something to the public or to the trustees, but you're not. That's all I want to say.
And I'll just add that we have a lot of things that we know we need to fix, for sure. So we definitely need to, go forward. And I think, and I agree with you, we just have to go forward and make sure we get everything that we need. Well, I think at this point we have quite a few people in the community, including myself and the other trustees, that are now, I mean, we now understand what's going on. And having seen the plant, I just have to say we need to move forward and all of us work together and do the best we can.
May I have my response? Can I respond to your question? Yes, there are several, and I was trying to open it, but I didn't make it in time. I'm sorry, but the JDS original, say, draft report that was released, Corrid in June, was delineated several specific procedures that they thought were most. I think it's in it might be in an appendix. Yeah, it might be in an appendix actually. So done in one page. Awesome.
The last page of the report has a list of what they think should be SOPs created.
Right. And is that one? Yeah, is that one on there? That was not. Okay. Okay. That was. Yep. That was where I would go to for distinction. But no, I mean, if the work is being done by town and it's regular work that is complicated, I feel like a procedure is in order. It's necessary, and it would help those guys. That would help Roop and Kendall. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's been a cost for testing the entire system, if that's been checked into, and if it has, how much is that going to be, and how is the town going to cover it?
Could you elaborate on
have
what you mean by testing the entire system?
The full system tested like Corinne was talking about.
You mean for leak detection? Leak?
Yes.
Oh, we don't know yet, I don't think.
Okay, so you don't know how much it would cost, okay? And you don't know where you'd get the money yet, or is that like out of one of those grants that they were talking about at the last meeting where you know, the state will kick in some money? Because I'm just curious
Yeah.
as to how long this whole procedure would take before we're able to actually find out what the problems are before we can even go ahead and fix them.
Well, I can only answer it's going to be incremental because there are a lot of things that need to be fixed simultaneously. And the trustees are asking for costs for the immediate work that's going on, the skid 2 to be repaired, which is absolutely paramount, has to be done. And re-looking at the budget, because we didn't know this when the budget was created. And yes, and looking at grants. I'm working with Mayor Baccarin and Corinne to start investigating grants. No, we do not. Nope, we don't. So at this point, we're doing what we can to try to get the immediate issues addressed, because there are a lot of them. And hopefully, well, and I've just, you know, I have a technical background. I'm not a grant writer, but I've written a few grants in my time. But no, I'm no contracted grant writer. But we're doing what we can to at least get some immediate money to deal with, you know, I'm not even sure what the PRV vault redo is going to cost. And we may have the money for that, because that and the skid repair have to get done right away, in my opinion. And I think that's what we'll present to the trustees. And we just have to find the money to do it. So that's a non-answer, because I don't have an answer.
Sir, yeah, if you could go to the microphone so people on YouTube can hear you. Thank you.
As far as the leaks go, the people that are on town water, are they paying for that leaked water in any way? In terms of the rates or?
Technically, yes. I mean, everything that the cost of producing water itself is actually not that high. So essentially, whether we make 1 million gallons or 2 million gallons, the cost is going to be fairly close. You know, there's per gallon chemical costs and things like that. But at the end of the day, we're the only ones paying for it. You know, like whether it's per gallon or it's getting dumped on the and leaking out of the pipes or gets spilled off of it, we're the ones that pay. So yes, in the
All right,
end, we do.
thanks.
Add to that we each pay a base rate, and the base rate is part of the money needed to keep the distribution system and the treatment systems going. So, but nobody pays for that leaking water because it hasn't gone through a meter,
Right. Well,
an individual house meter.
yeah.
Just
I mean, yeah. It's basically by fixing the leaks, we make more water available to use, and that adds value to the system because then it can be charged for. It can be metered and paid for. It also expands the capacity of our system to add to fix our leaks. That's as they say, the cheapest water you can find is the stuff that goes down the drain. You know, fix your leaks. It's a lot better than trying to find new springs and build new infrastructure. I believe Mike said he had something to add here.
Yeah, I guess I'd ask everybody, including the audience and including us. None of us has the clock that you can back up and bitch at the person who's done something wrong. So let's quit talking about it now. Let's just go forward. This is where we are. Doesn't make any difference how we got here. We got to go from here and make it work. And I'd really rather go forward than go back and have a unruly discussion over things we got nothing that we can't fix because they're done.
Good advice. Yeah, I think moving forward, I think I'm gonna try and stick with my concept of communication. So I feel that not to place blame on anybody. In the past, communication hasn't been top. So if we can improve there, okay, all right. So I'm still open to any suggestions that anybody might have in that realm. But in the interest of moving forward, the next item on our agenda actually rolls right into this discussion, and that is the priorities at the plant, at the 2 million gallon Lamborn plant.
I'll look to Tammy too, because Tammy and I went up together yesterday, and Josh took us through, and I know Thomas went through as well. But some of the things, first of all, the main priority we've talked about is that the second skid needs to be up and running, because we only have one filtration system working right now. And again, we're going to find out how much that's going to cost to do. But then, because we don't have any redundancy right now, if something should happen to that one that is running. And the other thing that I took away with is there are some large filtration tanks towards the back of the treatment plant that there was some flooding, and they actually floated, and piping has been broken. And I think we need to get those anchored down and replace the piping, because that, if I understand it right, we're going to need that for potential additional filtration that we may need to do at that system, depending on what CDPHE may be. There may be new requirements for, you could elaborate on that, Corinne? Thanks.
I do believe it's a potential change in requirements for systems that are groundwater under the influence, like our system, as well as a necessary component to do the appropriate backwash. They have to do a backwash cleaning on a certain schedule, and that's coming up in the next several months. I believe actually next 3 months. So that will be something that has to be done.
And I don't think there's any idea what that will cost to get those anchored.
Not yet, no.
And redo the piping, so that's another one. Go ahead.
Filter Tech, again, Deb Jensen is the designer of Filter Tech. I'm sorry, the owner of Filter Tech, and she's the engineer that built that plant that's in there. And she is right now in the process of writing up an estimate on what it would cost to do those repairs, as well as I've requested from her an estimate for Filter Tech to come in on a monthly basis, do an inspection, and provide a list of anything that needs maintenance or is going to need maintenance in the upcoming future, so that we would have that information direct from them and have a maintenance schedule on a monthly basis.
But can I just give that a name? It's called CIP, or Clean in Place, is what she's talking about, just for the record. So,
Yeah.
Will there be a cost associated with those monthly inspections?
There would be. We would have to bring to the board a contract to enter into a contract with Filter Tech, so that they would provide the monthly inspections and cleaning. We don't have a contract right now with Filter Tech. What they do offer as part of the designers of that plant, they come through and calibrate their equipment and look at the computer system and do some things, but they don't do that on a monthly basis. So this would be a new contract that I anticipate to have. She's out of the office until the 21st, so I anticipate to have it by end of next week, so I can bring it to the board at the first meeting in March.
So yes, okay, thank you.
A follow-up question to that, just based on money. So once we have I think at this point we're looking at request for proposal for a contract ORC for the rest of the year at some point when the SSG folks' contract is up, or maybe we're extending, but
That's on the agenda for Tuesday, too.
okay. Yeah, and a lot of this will be more definitive on Tuesday. So the question I have, though, is this is where we need people, we will need someone on staff that can do that monitoring,
Yes.
that Filter Tech could maybe initiate with us to train people,
Yes.
so that we have more people on staff. And one of the things that I wanted to ask about is that in the JDS February 4th report, they said 2 licensed waterway system operators have been advertised for. I wasn't sure about that.
Well, I told him we were looking to hire 2 people, so I think he just stated that. I just had it as an open position, but I didn't state how many positions were open.
They will not necessarily have their licensing.
No, but they don't have to have their licensing when they come on staff, but the people that we're hiring are people that have to be willing to have the licensing. I know there's been a lot of conversation about individuals in the community that have licensing and their availability, but I can let the board know that they were approached and stated that they weren't interested in that.
So do we have, we don't have an ORC.
We do have an ORC right now. It's Joshua Moore through
I know.
SSG. And
I meant-
SSG already has,
I meant at the end of the month.
yes, we will. And it's
I
on
mean-
SSG. So the reason that SSG's contract was only for 2 months was because above and beyond the 2 months it was going to take for them to get in and do the audit of the system and bring that information to the board, which I felt was emergent to happen. Anything beyond that, I would not approve a contract without it going to the board for approval. And so they are
Okay,
bringing a longer contract. Josh will not be operating in that position, no.
Right. So, yeah, my understanding is, the contract was an emergency stipulation because we don't have a replacement ORC other than Travis. So my question is, we're in the same position again in a week and a half. So at that juncture, what do we do?
The Board of Trustees will have a contract in front of them on Tuesday to increase the amount of time with SSG. If the board chooses not to, we have 30 days to get someone in place and report.
My understanding is that SSG is not available after.
That is
February.
inaccurate information. I've
Okay.
spoken with Brianna Greer on a daily basis, and we met today as well. She's providing me a proposal tomorrow.
Okay.
That will be in the packet
Very well.
for Tuesday.
I thought I heard you say that someone was hired today. Did I misunderstand for what position?
The individual that's hired today is brought on staff. They don't have the licenses that they would need to operate as our person in operator in responsible charge is a very weird, talk to the state, name, but that person that has the licenses, they don't have those, but they were hired specifically to work with those that do have the license to learn our plants and have that somebody local that is on call and has that ability to go to the plant, do these daily standard operations that they're talking about when they're discussing the SOPs. So that's that individual.
So was that done because it's just impossible to find somebody with a license?
It
Like-
is nearly impossible right now for anyone to find people.
Okay, and does the new person have a contract to work? Or
No, he's a staff member.
He's just staff?
He's hired direct as a staff member for the town.
And does that person intend to get the licensing?
Yes, they do.
Well, right, I would think that he'd have to be under contract if we're going to pay for his license.
If the town,
Yeah.
if the town pays for any training based on the cost and length of training, contracts are signed by the staff members. Either they have to stay with the town for a certain period of time or they have to reimburse for the training. That is new. We've only done that with 2 other staff members, but that is in place.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I think it's more of a trustee question. So, okay, today, our plan is to extend our contract with SSG in order to maintain an ORC in our plant. That's my statement of understanding. Is that correct? Anybody think I'm incorrect in that understanding?
That would be my recommendation to the board, yes.
Okay.
Christina, you had a comment?
So, let's see. Oh, okay. So, moving forward, I was wondering if this board would be amenable, as well as Corinne, be amenable as a support system, as a group, that when these people put in their applications, that y'all can review it as a group. So it's not just one person. And that would ease my mind personally, because we have had all these people that cannot do their job, and that is clear. That's what happened. Moving forward, I think that would be an answer to that, is if it's not just one person, it's a board. Or if it's not this board, that we get that oversight trustees, the 2 trustees, bring back that oversight committees for public works, and have a committee, please, have a committee go through all these applications and get the right people in these positions, because it has not worked. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's would have to be a Board of Trustees action, but I'd be happy to personally review anybody's credentials or work with a hiring team. That'd be great.
Actually, I think Thomas will go along with this. We, as the Water Advisory Group, would be glad to look at that if they want us to do that. We can't go and tell them we're going to do it, but they can tell us they would like us to do it, and I think we would do it.
We can also ask permission.
Well, we can ask permission.
You
but
want to make that a motion to ask the trustees for permission to review hires for the water system?
she's probably
It's not up to her.
Yeah.
It's up to them.
Actually, it's not.
Well,
So staffing is actually at below positions that are directly supervised by the board would be mine. And what I was going to say is I don't have any issue with members of the Advisory Water Committee being aware of and reviewing some of the information and applications and for individuals that are hired, but no one is hired specifically for the water company only. So, or for the water only, the water system. So our water person is hired for water and wastewater. So it's more than just their qualifications
Okay.
for water, and I just
yeah,
want to make sure that's
okay,
clear.
water, wastewater. I'd say
Right.
utilities versus public
So-
works maybe is a better distinction.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And no, I don't have an issue at all
Well-
with getting advice or including additional eyes
Yeah,
in review.
I don't think anybody suggested that you did have a problem. But I think my feeling is the same as Mike's, is that it's up to the board, so we can ask them if we want them to do it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Corinne, but you're the one that's in charge of hiring. You don't have to get board approval. You just get to pick who you think's the best.
That's correct.
So we don't, she just told us that she'd be happy
Right.
for us to review.
Right.
We don't need to talk to anybody else.
I
Yeah,
can
I-
report
I
that out
think-
to the board and
yeah,
state
I
that
think
that's my
I
inclination.
would be uncomfortable with that arrangement. I think that it would be necessary for us to have permission from the Board of Trustees of the town to take that action, especially for it's personnel matters, and so in order to I don't think Corinne has the authority to release personnel
Neither does the board. The board doesn't have authority to release personnel information either.
well
And
I guess
personal information.
personnel maybe.
So again, what I'm saying, I'd be happy to ask to present to the board the
Okay.
suggestion and get a consensus approval from the board that they don't have a problem with having that. I understand that there is a distrust to my ability to hire individuals to work in our water system, not that I have ever hired anyone to work on our water system before.
Okay.
So I'm happy to include people that have expertise in those areas in the interview process, no different than having expertise in interviewing and reviewing applications for the police chief position, which is also a direct report.
Right. So,
I wondered if, Corinne, do you feel like you need a motion from us? Or can you just, I don't know that we need a motion and a vote, because it's the kind of thing that I may not be able to be part of it as a trustee,
Right.
based on just the laws regarding trustees and the town manager. But we have
Exactly.
at this point, two citizens that could potentially do it. But I think
Or
that
three.
definitely is a discussion for the trustees. So if you
Yes.
will put that on there, I will as a trustee, I will second, second that we did talk about it, and I'm sure Thomas will be in the audience.
Yeah, my question is that the mechanism that we want to use to communicate with the board? Back to communication, I think that right here is where we've fallen apart quite a bit in distilling what we think and making sure that distillation makes its way to the trustees. I think there's been some sort of loss of mechanism there where,
Could interject,
please.
Trustee Meck and I have put in there that we thought it would be good if this committee followed Robert's Rules of Order, but we don't yet. But the ordinance says to study and recommend. So I think the term would be that the Advisory Water Committee recommends to the trustees that the members of the Advisory Water Committee, with caveats, be able to review applications. And are we talking about having members be part of the interview committee? Or just review applications? 'Cause
My preference would be that you review applications and make a recommendation. And that would be a collaborative, that we would do that.
So, go.
Yeah, an interview might be a good
I
step.
again understand that there's a lack of trust, but I really think without any study, just from one statement made in this meeting and without any real looking into this on any real level, you're basically trying to cut the knees of what are my responsibilities and duties in my position.
I think that's a unfair assertion.
It's
What I think, I think what might be good is to consider that we need help getting people into these positions, and where that help comes from could be like, if you're uncomfortable with such an arrangement, fight it, But
I'm not uncomfortable.
feel
I
like,
stated that.
please, I feel like you've been in attendance with these meetings. You understand. I know that Phil and Mike, to my recollection, both felt very strongly that we should have an additional ORC as of last summer. And I know that there's budgeting considerations and all kinds of hurdles to creating an additional spot. But at the end of the year, we still didn't have an additional ORC. So either it was a matter of trying to find a person and being unsuccessful, or not trying. Regardless, if we can be of assistance in seeking people out, selecting them, and making sure that they're placed rapidly, maybe not hastily, but expediently. I would be happy to help make that happen. I don't know what other suggestions might be valuable to try and get additional staff up at those plants.
So what I would state to that is that, first of all, when we're again looking in the rear view at budgeting for staff, it has been very difficult every year at the board level to add additional staff members. That's a difficult conversation we've had. There were modifications that were made to this schedule to address to this budget to specifically address the burden and switch up the way that staffing was done, because again, whether it's considered excuse or not, ORCs are very difficult to locate and to find that want to work for the town. This has been brought and stated to the board by other individuals. This is not just me. The average age for an ORC in the state of Colorado is 55 years old, and there are not a lot of people entering into this field. We've filled 2 positions specific to water and wastewater, which we've never had before done this way, that are both younger individuals who have an extreme interest and desire to enter into this field and remain local working here. The way that it works through CDPHE is that you are required to have one person that has the ORC licenses. You can designate and delegate to others responsibilities under your authority when you have your SOPs in place appropriately, which we did not, so that they have that ability and capability to run the plant and operate the plant while they are training and getting those licenses. That is what the town is working on and can afford at this moment. The way that we are funding that is through the way that the budget was set up for this year, where we had split out the utilities completely from Public Works. But with Travis no longer being here, no longer needing to split that out, we're now that is where the contract ORC and the two specific staff members in support of a contract ORC firm who have more than one ORC in their firm will be assisting the town.
So with that in mind, it's still sensitive. So what I'd like to suggest is that the Advisory Water Committee members would like to review the applications, and I think it's kind of up to the trustees for that. And then I think we could add that the members would like to be considered to be part of the interview process and let the trustees discuss it and vote on it.
I have no problem with you discussing it with the board, but I know that it will be mentioned, of course, at the board that is above and beyond the responsibilities.
I think that's okay to put out in the public, to do it that way, to be fully transparent about the request may not be totally appropriate.
And
So-
this would be a discussion, but there wouldn't be a decision at this meeting because it's not on the agenda.
On the agenda?
Not at this point. The agenda's already done for this meeting. Because it's Thursday evening, we can't modify the agenda and pack it for tomorrow. But you can.
What?
No,
Tomorrow?
I can't add items that
Well,
at
no,
the
I'm-
last
you
minute.
said
That's-
third.
It's the 22nd.
Packets go out tomorrow. No.
Meeting, sorry, that's what.
Agendas and packets go out on Fridays.
All right.
It cannot be, I don't make the agenda.
I know.
The mayor makes the agenda.
I know.
At this point, it will not be approved to be on an agenda for Tuesday evening. It can be reported out under Advisory Water Committee report, and if the board wants to look at it, the board would place it on the next agenda.
Okay.
Would you do me a favor in your administrator's report, which I'm sure you're going to express the hiring of Mr. Garcia, if you would give us a status on the other position that's currently open, whatever positions are open,
It's the ORC position,
the,
the contract ORC, the long-term. The other two staff positions are already filled.
and the other one is filled with Redden?
Jordan, yes,
Redden.
who starts the 23rd.
Okay. And what about the Public Works Director?
The Public Works Director position is also open, but that is not the water wastewater.
Okay. Maybe elaborate on those three positions and what is what, because we kind of have a moot point here. Because you've already hired the two Public Works, or
I
the-
reported that out at the last meeting, yes.
you already, okay.
Yes.
So I get it.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia, is your intent that he is Public Works and he's also going to train to be the backup
He's-
SOP reviewer
he
at
is-
the treatment plant?
He is hired specifically for the water and wastewater system, not streets, parks, trash.
Okay.
Only water, wastewater. And so at the last board meeting, when I reported that we had one hire and one other that I was waiting to hear back from, Jordan had already accepted the position. He starts the 23rd. He had to give 2 weeks' notice. The one I was waiting on was Jeremiah. Jeremiah came in this week and stated, yes, he accepted the position, and he started today.
So it's a moot issue. There's nobody to interview
No.
anymore.
Other than the ORC when we, well,
Okay.
it's a contract, though. That will go to the board.
Right. And, okay, this to me is a horse of a different color, let's say, because I think it would be really good for the Advisory Water Committee to be part of the hiring of the contractor for the ORC.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Not a staff member.
No, the
I
board,
thought we were talking staff, but
yes.
some additional oversight for the
Yeah.
hiring of the ORC contractor for the remaining 9 months.
That goes to the board. It
Madam
has
Chair?
to. That's a board decision.
Madam Chair, couple of things. One, it's my understanding that agendas are flexible until the meeting starts. I've seen them change a couple times. Actually, last time something was removed, it was issued on Friday, then removed on Monday and changed. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah. I think that I think that's probably important. And it may, if we can broaden the net a little bit, we may find that there are other people nearby who are willing to help. For now, I'm thinking long term.
My question is, so we've missed our opportunity for
Well-
the hiring of the 2 people. It could be a discussion point for future hiring for the water systems, and that could
Yeah.
come up as part of your administrator's report.
Correct.
Rather than change the agenda at this point, because I feel
Well,
like,
I don't think that. I mean,
I feel like we do, because we've missed our opportunity.
well, we can.
But we do need to know exactly how do the public and trustees, how are they involved with the hiring of the contractor? Because then the advisory water committee could be part of that in the near term.
If I may, these guys, Jeremiah and Jordan, are not necessarily the last people that we're going to hire. Yeah. So yeah, I think it would be appropriate for us to make sure that on the advisory water committee report on Tuesday, our representative mentions that we feel that involving the advisory water committee in future hiring decisions for the water system, the utilities, I think is probably a good term, because water system people think drinking water only. Utilities, that we involve the committee either in
I think that's
reviewing
fine.
applicants or.
But that doesn't require an agenda change. That's
Right,
what I'm
yeah,
pushing
sure.
back on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just a point of fact. So, yeah, therefore I move, so move that we ensure that the water committee report at the next town trustees meeting includes a note to indicate that the advisory water committee wishes to be involved in the process of filling positions for the town utilities. Yeah, future positions. Or similar, substantially. Sound good? Second. Water, yeah, utilities only. Yeah, I don't think we have, there's a little overlap in the purview of utilities and public works when the street needs to be dug up to put a pipe in there. But as far as I understand, that's pretty much it.
The enterprise system, which is really water only, but trash is included in enterprise. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to make sure. I will be happy to bring that up as the AWC report.
Thank you.
And then I just want to again reaffirm the discussion about the ORC. And for the trustees, someone like myself, I have no idea what the trustees' involvement is there. So if you could make that clear on Tuesday's meeting, and so that all the trustees understand what their role will be, that would be great.
Yes, and so that AWC and public in attendance does know that works in the same. It's similar to the same fashion as the town attorney's contract went. There would be an interview set up, whether that was done with the entire board, and all the contracts would go to the board, who would make the ultimate decision on who to contract.
Yeah, okay. So moving forward, I'm not sure exactly where we were on the agenda. We have we were talking about the plant priorities. We had your review of what's broken, what needs to be fixed, and our next item is the ordinance change for the structure of this board.
The proposed changes would be that staff person is no longer a member of the committee, and the committee will be increased by 2 more public members. Right now, it says there has to be at least 2 in-town users, 1 out-of-town user that is serviced by the Paonia system, and 1 out-of-town water company. What's the term for somebody who manages a water company that's serviced by the town of Paonia? Let's see, Tammy, what other things? That the chair will not have a voting, will not vote. No, the chair is not necessarily the trustee. That is not, doesn't have to be the case. Anybody could be the chair, but the chair will not have a vote during motions and will be a tiebreaker. And we recommended using Robert's Rules of Order for these meetings. Tammy, what else? I think that's pretty much it. So that will go in front of the trustees on Tuesday. So once that's approved, the trustees, I think you would put out a letter of interest to a in-town user. And then it could be either an out-of-town user or an out-of-town water company person. And then the trustees will choose the 2 additional town members. Thanks.
Regarding Robert's rules, I've recently started reading them as I'll be participating, using them, and for small committees, and I think this is a good one because we don't have any authoritative power. We don't. We're very, 3 people, 4 or 6, however many end up the final number. Essentially, the formality involved in some of the procedures can be waived. So I think that's probably still livable, and I don't know if you want to quantify like which rules are to be followed or which are not.
Can we do that at the next meeting?
Yeah, I think that's probably appropriate
Oh.
when the ordinance is after the ordinance is passed.
Yeah. And let me just add that the original ordinance said that there would be a monthly meeting. That is actually being struck in lieu of the fact that under 2-10-30, it says to provide a regularly scheduled forum for any recipient. And the reason we thought for doing that was that this committee doesn't necessarily have to meet every month, but we do need to probably come up with a regularly scheduled system that I think we could talk about when we're a complete, have all of our members. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is let's talk about the kind of the scaled back Robert's rules for a small committee, because I agree, since we're not a elected body. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is that I'd like to put on the agenda for our next meeting is that we actually really look at what the committee was created to do, the purpose of the committee. I think it would help all of us, including the public, what we actually are supposed to be doing and what sorts of things we're supposed to be recommending to the Board of Trustees according to town code. So that's just a proposed agenda item for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to start a meeting, as a statement of purpose. And like the last, I don't know what the new ordinance, how it reads, but okay, yeah. So that we can read that. I can read it now if you want. Okay, I'll do it next time. Okay.
My name's Kayla Rosen, by the way.
Kayla.
Where can I find the ordinance that created the committee?
You have to go to the town website,
It's on,
and then there's a set of buttons. As you scroll down, go to the rightmost one that says Town Code.
okay.
And then, in this case, you would look under, let's see, what chapter? Chapter 2 and Section 10. So go to Chapter 2 and then scroll down to Section 10.
Okay.
And it is there.
And so this advisory committee is actually going to be made up of 6 people? Is that correct?
Correct. 1 trustee and 5 public.
Oh, okay, so there will be 1 trustee, okay, and 5 of the public. And so this the ordinance specifies what your responsibilities are, and you're still defining that, obviously.
No, the ordinance, when it was established, it has a section on purpose of the committee. And I just think it's good to go back and revisit that and maybe think about, you know, are we fulfilling that purpose?
Okay, because it seems like you could amend that if you needed to as you go along.
Not really. I mean, we can't. That's up to the trustees. We can recommend perhaps some changes as we get into it and see if maybe something is working and isn't. Definitely can recommend changes, but we as a committee cannot change what our stated purpose is based on the ordinance.
Okay, because this is great. I'm so glad to see that this exists. It's just if you, if you have no authority, where is it going to go?
Well, it's advisory, study and recommend, study and recommend. So, no, the trustees don't have to take our recommendations. But I think it was a way to allow there to be a group of people looking more in depth, because the number of studies that have been done in this town and the things that are going on, I mean, it's been going on for years, and it was just, and again, I'm sort of speaking for the committee, but it just seemed like a way for some folks with some background to drill down a little bit more into some of the detail.
And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but is there a way for the public to have an influence in terms of, you know, what you as a board, as, you know, more experienced people, as an advisory board, you know, to really have more of a say? Because I think the town needs that.
Yeah.
You could put your name in to be a member.
Okay.
Yeah.
And standing up and speaking like you are tonight, to me, is a great thing, too.
Yep.
All right.
If you'd like to be more involved and receive more background information about these reports that we're talking about, or any of the documents, or just sit down and hash out if you have any questions, I'm available. Try to make myself available most of the time. I think my phone number is available on the website through, I'm pretty sure I think it lists it on the Advisory Water Committee listings, but I'm happy to talk about it, about the history of it, and to listen to what you suggestions or concerns you might have.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Dan?
So we're kind of past this, but I want to back up to the hiring ORC, contract ORC. And I don't know how, I mean, not all of you kind of know what is in the budget. But I mean, we're talking about hiring for a position that has no more budget for it. Because I think we spent the entire Travis budget, you know, for the operator on this contract with SSG. By the next month, I think that budget is going to be busted. So it's just frustrating because there's stuff happening that, and I know you guys are making recommendations or would like to be involved in hiring or whatever, but the thing is, okay, I'm just going to stop on that topic. It's pretty confusing. But there's something I'm a little curious about, and that's long-term versus short-term contractors. And I don't know who contractors actually answer to. When Tim Roop goes and digs up a street, he's basically working on his own. He's not going and having to interface a lot because he's the authority. He knows what the heck he's doing. And I'm wondering, when we hire ORCs, it seems like that's kind of what SSG is doing. I mean, they're touching bases and letting us know what's going on, but they're the professionals. They're the ones who know what's going on. So I'm just kind of wondering, when we hire contractors, it's a little different than hiring an employee that needs direct supervision, right? And I'm also wondering, you know, I don't know, it's like, why don't people want to work for the town? It looks like we're having a really hard time with even employee retention recently. These are maybe board topics, but I'm just throwing it out there just so you guys as a advisory board are aware that there are bigger issues around this all, even though we'd like to kind of keep it in a tidy box. So those are things to think about. And then they seemed a little bit more pertinent while we were still talking about the ORCs. So that whole, I mean, when people put in, when people are asked to apply as an ORC contract, I mean, how much vetting actually happens with that? I mean, isn't that something that kind of goes to the board, or I mean, do you like pre-approve people before? So I'm a little bit
If I can
confused
add
about the
in,
hiring.
we
Yeah.
had a whole system that we did with the new attorney.
Yes.
So there is a plan in place.
Okay.
That I'm assuming we
Good.
would do something very similar
Okay.
with the folks coming in for the ORC. And I'd like to add that it would be my understanding that that contractor would report to Corinne, who would report to the trustees.
Okay.
I mean, that's the
So
normal.
you can't have a direct report contractor? I mean, so I mean, the board can do whatever they want to do, I suppose, the town board, because they're the boss, basically. They're ultimately the boss, and they can change any ordinance to reflect what they want. But I'm kind of curious about short-term versus long-term contracts. I mean, SSG, it was completely out of the board's hands. They got hired. And then that kind of was ratified in a way by the board. But I think Brianna, from what I heard, she was saying that you can't afford us. You're going to have to hire. So,
Leanne, I just have to say, you
Okay.
should save this for the trustees.
okay.
Because we
but I
can't.
mean, I guess what I'm asking to,
We don't
though,
have any
I want to
control.
say is you're talking about a pretty long-term process for hiring with a lot of vetting and review like you've done. But what about short-term contracts? A month? What if you just need to get someone in there? So anyway,
Well,
I'm
that's what was
putting that
done.
out to you.
That's what
Just-
was done, you know,
Okay.
in a pinch. So, Suzanne,
No, but I mean as a board.
well,
Okay. And then one final point is agendas can be changed right up until 24 hours before the meeting. So it sounds like it's a choice by the mayor maybe and I think in this kind of times of, we kind of have a crisis going on here. And I think maybe, you know, it's really too bad that people are being that rigid and obstructionist, you know, and I know she's not here, so yeah, thanks.
I don't have any good answers for you. I'm going to echo Paige's sentiment that please bring this to the trustees, the town trustees, because we don't, as you know, we don't have any authority to do anything about it here, no matter what we say. I would like to take this opportunity because you bring up an interesting point of crisis, and I would like to understand for my own edification where the communication about the state of the plant broke down, because it seems like what I saw or what was described to me and what I've read from SSG's report, this was almost another emergency outage in about 12 different ways. We're one component of failure away from complete collapse of the treatment plant. And it seems like that state of things should have been brought to our attention.
Thomas, I guess again, I'd say that that's a question to bring to the trustees.
Right.
Because,
Well,
and I'm going to ask
I'm going to start here
Yeah.
with us, because I feel like we're pretty close to the history of it. I think we all know we were here, but what I'm looking for is a way to understand in the future what we can do to make sure that if things are I expect that they will never be in a similar state, but if things begin to deteriorate, how do we communicate that? And I think that having multiple people, so like more than one ORC, would be a really good way to do that.
May
Okay.
I answer to that? I would say that the breakdown came from having one point of contact that provided the data, and the data was accepted. I received information that I believed to be accurate information, and I'm not an ORC. So what we're putting in place to prevent that is additional staff members that will have they will have the laptops, the email, the access to the data. I am looking at the Fulcrum system, which is the system that SSG talked about that they've used. And it's interesting. It's Fulcrum is what it's called, and it is the one where you can go on and, again, like was stated, and someone in my position will not know every single step, every single test, every single thing to operate a plant in the capacity of an ORC. But what we can have is access to the data that shows that those things are being done through reports, through photos, through inspections, regularly scheduled inspections where you go and walk the plant. And those were not things that were in place before and were not done on a consistent basis that will be moving forward.
I agree with that, and I'm wondering, since I am a trustee, that it might be important to have a motion that we actually create a portal on our webpage where more people can see more things in real time that aren't an issue for terrorists. Because I'm equally as frustrated as a trustee, too, that we don't know the technical things that are going on. And I don't know if we could rekindle a Public Utilities Committee where some trustees actually get more information in real time.
The board can. It was useful. And I can state that in the meeting that we had with CDPHE, one of the questions that was brought up was whether or not there was a way to create a login that allowed the information to be viewed without having access to modify or do anything with the data. So they are looking into whether or not that is a feature that could be provided.
That'll be part of Tuesday's meeting as well.
If I get the information by then, yes.
Okay.
But I mean, I can report that that was something that was suggested.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what CDPH had to say,
Yeah.
including that. That would be great.
Mhm.
Thank
What happened is simple. The trustees didn't look into what was going on in the water system, hadn't looked in on it for a very long time. Well, why isn't, okay, can I tell you what I'm trying to get to? I'm starting at the top. The trustees have to be aware of what's going on. That's their portal, and if they're not talking to her and she's not talking to them, then that needs to be fixed. And then she's got the problem of the people that are doing the work, and if she's not getting the right data and she's not getting the real scoop, she can't give you good data. But the board, the trustees, you say it's not their job. I say it is. They're the CEO of the organization. And the CEO needs to make sure everybody below them's doing their job. You never been in business then, I guess. I don't care if it's a
So
government.
I'm
The
going to
government runs the
interject.
same
I'm going
way.
to, Mike, yeah, okay, and I'm just going to interject that I get your point and I get everyone else's point, and I've been on both sides of this, and we got to fix it. But, there's a saying, it takes an emergency for people to wake up, and unfortunately, everybody's awake with a hammer, and we all need to work together to get it done. And as the public, we were asking the right questions. We just weren't being heard, is really a bit of the problem. But I just have to say, we got to fix it soon, and we need to end this meeting soon too. And
If I may, so it's 6:44 right now. So a couple of things about what you just said, and I guess going all the way around. One, security. I think we need to be realistic about where the sensitivities of our water system are. So that we're not overly cautious in ways that aren't helpful. I think that if somebody wants to shoot a hole in the water tank, you can see it from Hotchkiss, So there's only so much we can do against vandalism or similar things like that. I think that where our real security risks are that present that we can patch are probably in our information systems. That's generally the SCADA systems, especially having remote access, represents a security risk, I think, that merits attention. Aside from that, the physical infrastructure is gonna be out there. You know, it's like the pipes are exposed in some places. Everybody knows where they are. Like being secretive about the location and you know, type of system that we have is not gonna be helpful. And in fact, the opposite, I think. The more that people know about it and the more participation we have, the more eyes that we have on it, the better it can be secured. Regarding the Public Utilities Commission or Committee, that was in place until about this time last year is when those committees were dissolved. So I feel like the existence of that committee or not wasn't very helpful, because these problems that exist in our plant have existed for at least 4 years, some of them. So I feel like the opportunity to commission, sorry? You can jump in. Okay. Could have been, yeah, more than 4. Yeah, could, yeah, at least 4 was the longest one that I saw for the air pump actually had some maintenance. It was 4 years derelict. I feel like oversight is probably the right direction, and I don't think anybody would expect Corinne to know the state of everything at the plant. That would be micromanagement, you know, and that's bad management. But an accurate summary, inspections, multiple employees, even a temporary, this is a concept that's I had never considered until recently, but we pay time off for people that don't take time off. We cut them a check. And another option is to tell them to take a vacation and have somebody else come in and do their job for a couple weeks. And what that does is produce an opportunity to have a second set of eyes on the job. This is how there was a not unlike what happened with Kristen Chesnick here. There was a town in Illinois that had rampant theft for decades, and the only way it was found, yeah, it's a crazy documentary. But that's how they discovered this theft. Was the person took a vacation, somebody else came in, did their job for a week, and found all these discrepancies. So I think that having extra eyes on it, letting people take their vacations, you know, telling them to put their feet up for a little while, can be really helpful. As a last thought, during my discussion with Jason up at the plant, I asked him about the 2019 break, when we had the outage for several weeks. And I was like, had you heard about that? And he said, everybody heard about that. Are you crazy? I read about it in the paper. And he expressed the sentiment that the people in Paonia, in the Paonia water system, maybe accept that things are just broken. And so our expectations are that, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, and these are my thoughts on something that he said. But I feel like our expectations are that my water might be out tomorrow. It might be out right now. So I keep a 5-gallon jug of water. I suspect a lot of you do as well. Keep some on hand, just in case we don't have water tomorrow. And that kind of acceptance and complacency starts is even above the spot of trustees. You know, the fact that the trustees weren't on top of it, of the plant, and Corinne wasn't on top of it, Travis wasn't on top of it, actually begins with us, right? I think we have to have the expectation that our plant is going to operate well, and make sure our trustees hear us, that we want a plant that operates well, one that operates at a reasonable cost, right? So ultimately, it's our responsibility as citizens that things are in the state they are. So, moving forward, I think that communication from the citizens to the trustees, from the trustees to our staff, and among all of our staff should be a primary focus as to how we can improve the state of our water system and other operations in town. That's all I have to say.
We're here. And let me do two things. So we need to schedule our next meeting. And I wanted to ask if you have, I was thinking it'd be good if our agendas, if we could get them posted along with the calendar posting. Is there a way to have our agendas be when you do the link from the calendar to the Advisory Water Committee? Could our agenda be in there? Have you done that before? Maybe you
Yes.
have.
I
Okay.
just need them to be provided
Yeah.
in
Well, how
ahead of
much
time.
ahead?
Usually a couple of days is fine.
Okay. So, because I was thinking that'd be nice for people to see that want to come to the meeting, can have the agenda. Well, I think we all have to, it's better to have a deadline that's not quite so close when you're dealing with people and schedules. So, but I don't know, since the ordinance may or may not pass Tuesday night, and it takes 30 days, once it passes, it has to be published before it goes into effect. So we won't have additional members for a few more months, is my point. So I don't know that we need to not have a meeting because we don't have all the members yet. So given everything going on, do you want to meet next month?
At our last meeting, we said we were going to have regularly scheduled meetings every quarter. But we also said, anytime there's a reason to have a meeting because you need us to do something, whoever that is that needs us to do something, we can have a meeting. And everybody agreed with that. So if you think we need to have one in a month.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. Right now, it says a monthly meeting in the ordinance, and that hasn't been followed, which is okay. I mean, the sky's not going to fall. And you all had gone to quarterly meetings, and the ordinance is going to say to provide a regularly scheduled forum. So at some point, there probably has to be a regular schedule. And if we don't have a meeting, you just put on the calendar, no meeting. But in the meantime, I feel like, given everything going on, and we're going to learn more in the next month, and what contractors we're going to have, there's probably a reason to meet in a month, because I really would like us to drill down on what the committee's supposed to be doing, and actually maybe look at the code that we're directed to look at possibly changing, so we can maybe have a better focus. So that's my recommendation, that we meet in a month, just to talk about some of that. And that would put us we can't do it on the 24th, because we're switching the other thing is the trustee meetings are switching to the second and fourth Thursdays of every month. So the 17th would be a Thursday in the middle. And have you normally been meeting on Thursdays? I just haven't been tracking.
It's whenever everybody's available.
Well, maybe it'd be better to meet after the second meeting in March. We're going to know a lot more about water, I think, after 3 more meetings.
There's a trustee meeting coming up on the 22nd, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. May want to wait until after that meeting, until the trustee meeting on the 22nd. That is to say, we may not want to set it up right now, because if there's a question, say, a particular topic that the trustees come up with on the 22nd that they would like to onto us, then that would give us an opportunity to schedule our March meeting before the first trustee meeting, so that we'd be able to answer them at their next gathering.
Sounds good, because I can quiz everybody on availability after that meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
we'll
would
do
give
that.
us from the 1st through the 9th of March to schedule a meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
We'll figure that out and post it publicly? Okay.
I guess with that, I'm ready to adjourn unless there are any more comments from any of us. Okay, we'll adjourn this meeting at 6:55. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.